Hello. Today we're going to discuss how to build agents that can securely interact with user-specific data in a database. Agents built with frameworks like the Agent Development Kit, or ADK, have the potential to transform how we work by interacting with enterprise data. They can summarize information, answer complex questions, and even write data back to your systems. However, this power introduces a challenge. How do we safeguard sensitive user data while still giving the agent the access it needs? A robust way to solve this is to limit what the agent can access. Instead of giving the underlying model direct access to a database, we can define specific authenticated tools that the agent can use. In the context of ADK, we can tie this authentication to a user's session. So here's how the pattern works. An ADK session represents a single continuous conversation with a user. This session can manage user-specific state, including an authentication token. The workflow looks like this. First, the application handles user login and receives an authentication token. When it starts a conversation, it creates an ADK session and associates that token with the new session ID. Next, the user asks the agent for their private information, like list my flight tickets. The agent determines that it needs to use the list tickets tool. The ADK framework invokes the tool's code, passing along the context of the current session. The tool's code then uses the session ID to retrieve the correct user authentication token. It attaches this token to its request headers and calls a backend retrieval service. This retrieval service acts as a gatekeeper for the database. It verifies the token and gets the corresponding user ID. Finally, the retrieval service uses that user ID to query the database, ensuring it only fetches information for that specific user. The data is returned to the agent, which then formulates a response for the user. This design is safer because the agent and the underlying model never see the authentication token or have direct access to the database. It only has access to the data returned for the single authenticated user within that session. Each user gets a dedicated agent instance that only has access to their own information. During this entire workflow, a traveler's ticket information is protected. The agent's memory and the authentication token are both associated with the user's session ID on the backend. The session ID is managed server-side and is not exposed to the user's client, which prevents an attacker from attempting to steal or spoof it. Likewise, the model itself has no awareness of the session ID or the user's token. This ensures that authentication is handled by predictable application code, not the LLM. This means each user gets their own sandboxed agent instance with its own set of authenticated tools. To add further safeguards, you can also integrate services like Sensitive Data Protection, or SDP, and Model Armor. Model Armor can use SDP to scan data retrieved from the database to redact or mask sensitive data before it reaches the model, and it can inspect the agent's final response to the user, acting as an additional layer of data loss prevention. By combining ADK session management with an authenticated tool pattern and these additional safeguards, we can build powerful agents that access sensitive, user-specific data without compromising security.